In a rainforest in Peru, something the size of a grain of rice is building a monster, a bristling spider several times bigger than itself, woven from silk, dead insects, and scraps of leaf. When a predator drifts close, the tiny architect grabs the web and shakes it, so the monster twitches like it's alive. Scientists only recorded this in 2025, and it's not the strangest part. The strangest part is what this exposes about a mistake science has repeated for 100 years, one that starts with a horse that could do arithmetic. Berlin, 1904. A horse named Clever Hans is doing math. Ask him to add two numbers and he taps out the answer with his hoof, the right answer, over and over. A German commission investigates, a veterinarian, a cavalry officer, and a circus manager. They watch him work, and they conclude there's no trick. The horse can count. Then a young psychologist named Oscar Funkst runs a harder test. He asks Hans questions the questioner himself doesn't know the answer to, and Hans falls apart. Suddenly, he's just guessing. The horse wasn't reading numbers, he was reading people. The tiny, involuntary lean a person makes as the tapping hoof reaches the right count. About 90% right when he could see someone who knew the answer, almost nothing when he couldn't. Science took a lesson from that horse, and it hardened into a rule. It's called Morgan's Canon. Never explain an animal's behavior as cleverness if something simpler will do. Good science. It has saved researchers from a century of wishful thinking. But a rule that always bets on simpler has a direction built into it. It will always, always underestimate. And three animals are about to show you how far that underestimate can run. One of them pays kindness forward to a stranger it will never meet again. Start with the ant that looks like a criminal mastermind. In 2021, an amateur ant keeper in Japan named Taku Shimada noticed something in a tank on his table. A newly crowned queen of one species had slipped into a colony of another, and within days, that colony's own workers turned on their mother and tore her apart. Then they bowed to the intruder and raised her eggs as their own. Reported in the journal Current Biology in 2025 by Shimada and a team at Kyushu University, it reads like a palace coup. The invader disguises herself in the colony's scent, walks in past the guards, some workers even feed her, mouth to mouth, and approaches the resident queen. Then she sprays her with a fluid from the tip of her abdomen, probably formic acid. Here's the trick. The spray doesn't poison the queen, it overwrites her smell. To her own daughters, she now reads as a stranger, an invader, so they kill her. Getting offspring to execute their own mother had never been documented in biology, and it looks like pure genius. But watch what the rule does here. The ant isn't scheming. She isn't planning anything. Evolution handed her a chemical key that happens to fit a lock in the worker's brains, and she sprays it. One species needed about 15 sprays. Another needed 2. No mind required. The simplest explanation wins, cleanly, which is exactly why the next one is a problem. Go back to that spider in the web. It belongs to a genus called Cyclosa, and the individuals in this study measured about 2.5 millimeters, smaller than a sesame seed. A team led by George Ola at the Australian National University watched them work in the Peruvian Amazon and on a mountainside in the Philippines. These spiders don't just decorate their webs, they build a decoy shaped like a spider, a body, radiating legs, a form several times larger than themselves, assembled from silk, plant scraps, and the drained husks of their own prey. They build it in the dark, sometimes in 90 minutes. And when danger comes, they sit inside the fake and shake it so the puppet lurches like something alive. Now apply the rule. What's the simplest explanation? That this is instinct, an inherited building program, no more self-aware than the geometry of the web itself. Probably true. Morgan's Canon says assume exactly that. But sit with what the simplest explanation still has to contain. Somewhere in a brain smaller than a poppy seed is enough information to assemble a convincing model of a spider, the very thing predators fear, plus the reflex to animate it at the right instant. Whether the spider has any picture of itself, any sense of what it's copying, we genuinely don't know. That's not hedging. That's the honest edge of the research. The rule tells us not to assume a mind. It doesn't tell us how a pinhead builds a puppet of a body it has never seen from the outside. The ant fooled its victims. The spider might be fooling us, but both are working alone, for themselves. The hardest case is an animal that spends something on a stranger. In a lab, a rat sits behind bars it can't get through, next to food it can't reach. On the other side, a second rat, a stranger, can pull a stick that drags the food into range, spending a little effort to feed a rat it has never met. The question the researchers asked was blunt. Does getting helped make you more helpful? Claudia Ruta and Michael Taborski ran this and published it in the journal PLOS Biology in 2007. Rats that had just been helped by an unfamiliar partner became measurably more likely to help the next unfamiliar rat, a completely different individual, one that had done nothing for them. Not, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, something looser and stranger. I was helped, so I help someone. Pass it on. It has a name, generalized reciprocity. And before those rats, the math said it could exist, but no one had shown it in any animal but us. This was the first. And here is what separates it from the ant and the spider. Scientists went in braced for the boring answer, ran the careful test, controlled for the simple explanations, and the impressive thing survived. Later work from the same group refined it. Females do it more readily than males, and the rats even factor in how recently a partner helped and how much it cost them. The generosity is real, and it's book-kept. You already run this program. Someone waves you into a lane of traffic, and a mile later, without ever deciding to, you wave in the next car. You didn't repay the person who let you in. You paid a stranger. A rat does that too. Go back to the horse one more time. When Funkst proved Hans couldn't do arithmetic, the whole story got filed under "Animal fools us, humans win." But look at what Hans could actually do. He was reading a shift in a person's posture so small the person didn't know he was making it. A caught breath, a fractional lean, and doing it well enough, across a crowd, to answer on cue. A room full of experts couldn't spot the signal. The horse never missed it. We were so busy proving he wasn't doing the clever thing we assumed, we nearly walked straight past the genuinely astonishing thing he was doing. That's the mistake. It's 100 years old, and it's still running. The rule that says assume less keeps being right about ants and keeps being wrong about rats, and the only way to tell which is the slow, unglamorous work of the careful test. There's a live argument now that the field has overcorrected, that we hand out minds too freely. Maybe, but the lesson of all four, the horse, the ant, the spider, the rat, was never that every animal is a genius. It's that the question was never how smart the animal is. It's whether we're paying close enough attention to notice what it's already doing.